Artist and designer Beau McCall has made his mark on the art world one button at a time. Special correspondent Bowen of GBH Boston takes us through the first ever retrospective covering his near 40-year career. It's part of our Arts and Culture series, Canvas.
Going all the way back to his childhood, artist and designer Beau McCall has been besotted with buttons.
My mom had a Maxwell House jar of buttons in the basement, full of buttons. So I always tell people it was almost like me in the jar had dialogue.
Whatever the jar said, it resonated deeply. Buttons have fastened their hold over McCall as his medium of choice. As we find at the Fuller Craft Museum in Brockton, Massachusetts, he's crafted vests, dresses, and shoes, jewelry, collage, and a bathtub.
So most of the things that I learned home in our apartment in public housing. Most of the crafts I learned at day camp, after school programs, and 3 sewing stitches from my mom that I still use today. So I like to call it homegrown.
McCall grew up in Philadelphia to parents with an innate sense of fashion and design, often assembled from thrift stores, rummage sales, even the trash. It was upcycling before upcycling was a thing, he says, which was the impetus for him to see a creative bounty in buttons.
The button for me is precious. I use the buttons as a language. I use the buttons to help me tell stories in the works.
Those stories began to have a sharper focus, he says, after a pivotal trip to Johannesburg, South Africa, where McCall's artistic scope was vastly expanded.
I got inspired by all the young creatives that was there. I was blown away by the craftsmanship and the visions that they had as far as fashion and art. And when I got back, I was inspired to do this piece that I titled Motherland One.
And then there's this, his cascading 20-pound do-rag fit for a red carpet.
And then if you look at it, it just glistens like a waterfall. So I was attracted to the way it sparkled. And then I had buttons commissioned about hair care. So there's an afro pick, you have an afro comb, you have the afro silhouette. So you have different variations of how black folks wear their hair.
McCall often wears his creations, but the headdress was designed for Solio, the artist's partner and the curator of this show.
It always makes you want to stand up right. It really gives you a sense of empowerment and beauty and strength and courage.
They're descriptors that could also apply to McCall, who moved to New York in the late 1980s. Buttons helped him banish a lifelong shyness and emerge as a designer and darling of the Harlem Institute of Fashion. All at a time, says Solio, when McCall used his work to both bolster and document an LGBTQ community marginalized by the AIDS crisis. He designed disco wear and assembled collages of his friends frolicking.
And so you see how his friends lived through all of those different periods in their lives, and what helped them get through those challenging social circumstances was their love for each other, their friendship and their bonds.
I see it as a love story between Beau and the button and material.
Beth McLaughlin is the artistic director and chief curator of the Fuller Craft Museum, and says she's been especially drawn to McCall's skill at elevating the otherwise humble button.
And I think in contemporary craft in particular, our whole field is based on this notion of skilled making and really taking these materials that we live with every day, that we touch every day, and transforming them into works of art.
A significant percentage of those buttons, by the way, have been entrusted to McCall over the years. While some are especially sourced, the best ones, he says, have a telltale sign of their rich history. They smell like mildew.
Most of the time, they've been sitting in somebody's house, in somebody's basement, in a jar somewhere, in the blue cookie tin or the old cigar box. And they've probably been around for years. Those were buttons when people really focus on the creativity in the button itself. So that gets me excited.
For the PBS News Hour, I'm Bowen in Brockton, Massachusetts.